made up a whole world and then I'm making up another parallel world within that world that says that world doesn't exist. I don't know, man.
I'd slap myself a lot. Like, what is happening?
Well, hey there, and thanks for stopping in a Nite Shift video. My name is James, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Josh.
How's it going, Josh?
Pretty good.
Pretty good. This is actually our first recording session since COVID-19 has taken...
We've been responsible.
There's not exactly 6 feet between us now, but we also, folks at home, are in an interesting situation where both of us are...
We're essential.
Fortunately or unfortunately, we're essential and constantly exposed to the outside anyway, so exposing us to each other isn't going to be much different than just going to work again.
I don't plan on touching them, so.
Nope, not at all. But anyway, we are here at the Nite Shift, and so I wanted to do a thing. I think we're going to dial back on the once-a-week movie review episodes.
Okay.
We're still going to do movie coverage because obviously that's what we are. We're a horror movie podcast.
Right.
But we're going to be doing them a little bit differently because we just always see a dip on those episodes. And so I'm hoping that maybe if you don't get them every week, then maybe they'll be more interesting when they come. But because this is a video store and I feel like we started out talking about movies, I always have to say something about movies.
Fair.
So the beginning of each Weird Wednesday update... Okay. Just like today, I just want to do like a featured film. And so sometimes maybe that's like maybe next week we'll do the movie that we watched tonight. But for today, I wanted to feature Lost Boys.
Cool.
This is one of those movies that I just never watched.
I have never seen it.
Really?
I don't think
I think we might be in a similar boat though. So like, I spent so much time hating vampires.
Yes.
And like, it's just never really been my thing. I still have Fright Night, boom, right here, which I have been reamed online since starting the podcast.
I'm sure.
That I've not seen Fright Night. And I even own it, and I still haven't seen it. But it's a vampire movie. It's just hard for me to get excited about. The other day, I probably should have watched Fright Night, but instead, I watched another vampire movie, which is behind your head there. I watched The Lost Boys, and it's right next to Escape from LA.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. And it's good. It's really good. And it has this, for me, the reputation of people who like The Lost Boys reminds me kind of like when I was in school, the people who really liked Donnie Darko.
Yes.
And so I specifically was already against Donnie Darko without ever seeing it because of the types of people who liked it and they would never shut the hell up about it.
Yeah.
And then I saw it and I'm like, I mean, that's okay. The Lost Boys is good. I was surprised at how good it was. It made me feel dumb for kind of being pretentious about it and being like, oh, that's like some stupid emo girl movie. Like, it's actually pretty good.
Interesting.
I've really enjoyed it.
I've only seen like small clips, and there's some really good insults in the movie that I know, and I've seen a lot of those. Like, there's a YouTube video, like 100 Greatest Insults in Movies. I've watched it so many times. It's fantastic. But I know that there's one, I think it's when he has the bat. He said, I'll make you a popsicle. That one.
Oh, yeah.
Seen that one.
Yep.
But yeah.
It's good. Thumbs up. Worth checking out. The Lost Boys. If you haven't seen it, I know that sounds stupid. Probably everyone who's listening or watching this has seen it.
We can't be the only ones with this whole.
Exactly. And it's just this weird thing, too, I think, of like growing up in the 90s, and then there's like that early 2000s vampire-iness that happened. I mean, we had like Blade, and then that led us into like Underworld, and then the capstone ended up with Van Helsing. Like, vampire movies weren't great.
Yeah.
I mean, there are gems in there. I get it. I mean, 30 Days of Night, people throw back and forth vampire zombies. It's probably more vampire than it is zombies, even though it kind of has a zombie vibe. But yeah, there you go. The Lost Boys. I broke down. I watched it. Next on my list when I have a night at home by myself, it'll be Fright Night. We'll see. Awesome. We'll see what happens. So I have a story about a recent Bigfoot sighting.
Nice.
So these happen all the time, obviously. But there's a few interesting things about this one. Okay. So this is the fourth recent sighting of Bigfoot in Littleton, North Carolina. Fourth in recent, like within the last few years. So this is from Paul Seaburn at mysteriousuniverse.org. So I'll read just a little bit of the article, and then I'll talk a little bit about what I have found out about the story. So essentially, there's this guy. His name is Jesse Walker. He was taking out the trash on March 20th, a little later than 1 p.m. on Moore Street in Littleton. It is on the northern North Carolina border with Virginia. So we're right in the middle of Appalachia here. He told Stephen Barcelo, remember Stephen Barcelo, because we're going to come back to him.
Okay.
So he's told Stephen Barcelo, who is the founder and owner of the Cryptozoology and Paranormal Museum, that's
a mouthful.
It is. It's also located in Littleton.
Perfect.
So you see Bigfoot, you call the Bigfoot Museum guy. That's what you do, right?
Yeah.
So he calls him and he's talking to him. He said he described him as tall. He had big hands, dark, almost black, shaggy fur. And there's actually a video on YouTube. I'll link to it in the description. But there's a video of this guy giving his account. And he's an older man. And he is visibly shaken, I would say. Like this truly shook him up. Mm-hmm. And he even kind of gets a little emotional, starts breaking down. He was scared. He's telling the story. All he really says is that he was taking the trash out and he saw it. There wasn't a direct interaction. It's just he saw it. It was unnatural. It wasn't normal. It wasn't a dog. It wasn't, a big raccoon or something. Man, we get some big raccoons in Indiana. I don't know about y'all, but they walk around town like they own the place. But yeah, so he goes in and he tells Barcelo. Now, the interesting thing about Barcelo is this guy, he was a former journalist in New York City, worked for a ton of different papers and news outlets, and he bought a haunted house in North Carolina and transformed it into a cryptozoology and paranormal museum.
What else would you do?
I mean, I would love to do something like that, but I would say that him being an actual reporter, he has some...
There's some credibility.
Credibility, absolutely. This is not just a total crackpot.
Right.
But what I find odd is that since he has created this museum, all of a sudden, in this town, have there been 4 eyewitness accounts, all of which he has made YouTube videos on.
I'm sure.
All of which has interviews with the actual people, and they're all good. I watched a couple of the other ones. There was another one that happened in, I think it was 2012, with a woman, and she was very adamant. She's like, all I know is I saw Bigfoot. It was weird. People say that I'm crazy when I say it, but I know I saw Bigfoot. And she also saw it not too far from the museum. Mm-hmm. It was kind of sort of in the backyard of the museum in a way. She wasn't at the museum. She was just driving and across the back lot, saw this thing. It was oh, it's Bigfoot. So obviously it sounds a little
it sounds a little Scooby-Doo-ish.
Little sketch. Is old Barcelo walking around?
How big is Barcelo?
See walking around in the middle of the night with a Bigfoot suit on. I don't know, maybe. Also, but I just thought that it was interesting. Do you no matter where you fall on either side of this issue on whether Bigfoot is real or not, I could probably make arguments for both sides, but having a cryptozoology museum in your town, do you think that would just make the possibility of seeing something more present in your mind?
Oh yeah,
you know this place is there. It's not even necessarily there because like this is where Bigfoot lives. Like it was just an interest he had, and so he apparently the house was haunted, and turned it into a museum. Then he's like, I love other creepy shit too, and like you can see. I'll throw the picture up, but like there's like paintings of Bigfoot like on the house, because signifying there's a cryptozoology paranormal research little sign that has a little Bigfoot on it and stuff. So like on one hand, like maybe it's just in the average person's like mind more because they know this is there, and maybe that could cause, hey, I saw a shadow, oh shit, it's Bigfoot. Just because you're used to seeing the imagery or something.
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you're a town or a city known for something, then you're just more aware of it. Like if you're from Philly, you like cheesesteak, the Eagles, and you don't really like other people. So that's kind of your thing, and you kind of steer into that. And that can happen with all cities and their things, and yeah,
now
something you're known for.
Now, my other argument, is it possible that somehow on some sort of like subconscious, like just natural being level, if these Sasquatch sightings are 100% legitimate, does having a place like this attract paranormal activity or cryptozoological activity? Like, I think about that a lot for like even like ghosty type stuff of like, if you think that it's real and you kind of like chase after it, then like it's more likely to show up to you.
If you build it, they will come.
If you build it, they will come. If you build the paranormal museum in the Appalachian Mountains, Bigfoots will come. Bigfoots.
Bigfootis.
Bigfootis will come. Bigfootai will come. Is that how it works? I don't know. What do you think? What's your general Bigfoot thought process? We've never really talked about this.
I think in a similar way that the ocean is completely unexplored and anything down there is 100% believable. I think there is more than enough.
Dude, you think about how weird an anglerfish is, like,
yeah,
and we know about those.
Yeah, so I would not be surprised at all. I think I think some might be hoaxes, but I think there are also weird big things that walk around, whether they're human-ish or not.
Yeah,
like when you like the movie The Descent. Like, I love that movie. Like, yeah, I think a race of weird things could have just completely adapted.
Cave dwelling, and they're just these bat creature, humanoid things. Yeah, maybe.
Especially also in Appalachia.
That's true. So I have another story. Before I get to that, I wanted to bring up, because you were on when we talked about the SS Orang Medan.
Yes.
And I kind of recently was reminded, I should have even had some more prepared for it tonight. I was just recently reminded that there is a video game called, I believe, Man from Medan or Man of Medan. Yeah. It's on PS4 and PC. It's called The Dark Pictures, Man of Medan. And I remember looking into it. It's from Supermassive Games, who are the guys who did that, what was it called? Until Dawn on PS4. It was like a real... It was a really popular, interactive storytelling. Okay. Kind of like, what was that other one on PS3 with the origami killer? I forget what it's called. Like that. It's like that. Yeah. It's like, there's not much to the gameplay. It's more of like a story-driven thing. And so they did this thing. It's called The Dark Pictures, and I think there's multiple chapters or like episodes is how it's laid out. And the first one is Man of Medan, which is apparently somehow tied to the story of the SS Orang Medan. And I actually really want to do a Twitch stream of this at some point.
Cool.
Because they do a cool thing where there is I forget what they call it. It's called like movie night mode or something like that.
Okay.
Where it is like you play with like 3 or 4 different people, and it's like a hot seat type. Oh, okay. It's like you rented the movie and like you're watching it together, and like you pass the controller around for different parts. And
cool.
I think it could be really fun.
Really cool.
It's like the perfect like merging of things for us. I think it could work out really, really well. But I wanted to throw that out there for anybody who's interested more about the Orang Medan. Apparently there's a game that's somehow tied to it. I see there's a little boat in the image, but it's probably not as big as what the Orang Medan is. But either way, it shares that name, and it has to be calling out to it in some way. So we're actually talking about a different man today. We're not talking about the man from Medan or the Orang Medan.
Nope.
We're talking about the mystery man from Taured or Taured. It is spelled Taured. So the story here, set the stage. 1954.
Got it.
Japan.
Got it.
Right? You know, coming out of World War II, things are healing, things are being rebuilt. You know, we're a few years removed at this point.
Yep.
Like, things are happening. Business is booming. I mean, we're not too far from, you know, the 70s and 80s where, like, Japan really goes nuts. But there is a very interesting story about a man traveling to Tokyo International Airport in 1954. They say that the day was hotter than normal, but other than that, a very normal day. Everything was going routine until a European inbound plane dropped off its passengers. As the crowd made its way through customs, a neatly dressed, middle-aged Caucasian man stepped up and told officials that this was just a normal business trip for him. One of 3 this year to Japan. So he's been coming back and forth a couple different times. His primary language is French, but he spoke perfectly fluent Japanese.
Okay.
So he's been back and forth. Yeah. He's doing some kind of business here. You know, whatever. This seems fairly normal. In his wallet were a variety of currencies from various European countries. Also fairly normal if you're traveling a lot.
Europe's not that big, you know.
And in 1954, I mean, like, everyone has their own thing. We haven't reached Euro status yet.
No.
So, like, everyone's got their own shit going on. You could be, like, held up at an airport somewhere else and need to get a lunch or something. Like, so he's got a bunch of different currencies. That proves that he's a frequent flyer. So they asked him for his country of origin at customs. And that's whenever things get weird.
Okay.
He casually stated that he was from a country called Taured.
Oh.
Again, Taured, which is on the border between France and Spain. The officials tell him no such country exists, and they start thinking that he's fishy. He presented them with his passport, which was issued by the country of Taured.
Okay.
He presented them his driver's license, also the country of Taured.
Okay.
All identification points to this country that does not exist. They had never heard of it. And so then he says, well, I come here all the time. This is my 3rd time this year. Call the company who I have a meeting with. The company that he was supposed to be meeting with in Japan does exist.
Okay.
They call them. Never heard of them. Never heard of the company that he was supposed to represent.
Okay.
Weird.
Very.
So, again, we're 1954. I would say, like, we're not, like, Cold War status, obviously, but, like, especially, I would imagine, in Japan, they would be very high alert for European descent people.
White people.
I would imagine that anything fishy going on with people that look like this guy is probably like ringing every bell, every red flag raised.
Well, Japan was like the last time we were closed off and we let a bunch of white people in. It didn't turn out so great.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I imagine that this is a very serious thing for them. And I mean, like, we do know that intelligence has started by this point. Spies do exist. Mm-hmm. I mean, spies existed in World War I. Of course they still exist.
I mean, spies
at this
existed
point.
in medieval times.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just, like, infiltrating the country. Like, who knows what this guy's plans may have been. So they call the hotel that he had a room reserved at, and there's no reservation for his name. And also he had a checkbook with a bank on it.
Okay.
The bank was supposedly located in Taured. They tried calling the number for the bank. Does not exist.
Okay.
Name of the bank does not exist in anything that they have. They literally pull out a map and they lay it out flat. And they say, hey, where you from, bro? And again, he's speaking perfectly fluent Japanese.
Yeah.
Like, because he's here all the time. He does this for his job. And he straight up points to Andorra, which is a tiny little province of a country right between France and Spain.
Right.
But I believe I didn't do enough research. I'm sorry, folks. I believe it is under Spanish rule. I think it's sort of like a Puerto Rico kind of thing, Yeah. Like
Europe empired a lot of things. They went all over the place. You're mine. Yep. I'll take it back later.
Yeah. So Andorra, which he says is Taured, and they say, nah, that's this little place called Andorra. Is not Taured. You say your main language is French. If you were from Andorra, your main language should be Spanish. Mm-hmm. This still isn't adding up. Mm-hmm. He claims that his country has existed for at least 1,000 years.
Okay.
He's very proud. He's very patriotic of Taured, and he's getting a little defensive at this point. So what they end up doing, just to try to figure out what's going on, make sure this guy is not some kind of European spy or even American spy, like who knows. They put him up in a hotel. They put a armed guard at his door. It's not stated necessarily like what floor his room is on, but it is a high-rise hotel in Tokyo, so it's not ground level. He's not just gonna sneak off. Also, they say that he did not have a balcony, and his window didn't even have like a ledge. So like it's straight up,
it's just the side of a building.
High-rise hotel. If he were to go through the window, like it's a straight drop. How you getting down unless you're Spider-Man? Guard at the door. Guy disappears.
I knew it.
This guy's gone.
Huh.
The man from Taured apparently never existed. Just gone. His stuff isn't there. He's not there. There's armed guard at the door the whole time. They never left their post, apparently. Guy's gone.
Interesting.
So obviously, like, the theory is that maybe it is a multiverse kind of thing, a different universes kind of thing. And this guy somehow went through the wormhole. You got the classic piece of paper, and there's a plane on one side, a plane of existence on the other side, and somehow this guy pokes a hole through the middle.
He fringed it.
He fringed it. Straight up fringed it.
Huh.
So there's that, and it's a great story, and it's weird. There's not a ton of information out there on this. It was posted in a book called The Directory of Possibilities, And then it was also printed in another book in 1999 called Strange But True, Mysterious and Bizarre People. But that's pretty much it. Both of these, like, true, mysterious books, you know? So we don't really know. There's no, like, direct eyewitness account of where the story even comes from. So it could be complete science fiction. But it is so Twilight Zone-y that I felt like it was a really good story to bring up. And it led to a couple other things. This is not the first fish out of water, I am not where I'm supposed to be story that has ever claimed to have been true. So in 1851, it was documented that there was this man who was walking around Frankfurt an der Oder in northeast Germany, and he claimed he was from a country called Lexaria on the continent of Sacria. None of these things exist. None of these things exist. There was another young man who spoke a completely unrecognizable language. He was caught stealing a loaf of bread in Paris in 1905 and claimed to be from Lisbia. Authorities assumed he meant Lisbon or Lisboa in Portuguese, but his language was not Portuguese, and he did not recognize Portugal on the map as his homeland. They're like, "Oh, you're from here," and he's like, "No, that's not Lisbia. That's
like,
Portugal.
What's up with your map? It's all wrong."
Like, no, that's not it. So yeah, this has happened, you know, a few different times, and I think it could easily be one of those urban legend things that gets repeated and repeated and repeated. All of these different stories, including the man from Taured, might all be from the same story, the same root story, which could be completely made up, someone that did for fun, or I think there's potential that maybe someone somewhere at some point had an experience like this due to mental illness.
Right.
And then that story gets spread and spread and spread, and then the details get changed, and now we got one of them's in Germany, one of them's happening in Paris, another one's happening in Japan, but like they're all kind of the same story.
I think those are cool though.
It's really cool, and it's really interesting to think about. And if you've seen Fringe, you really get it. Yeah. Like just this, you know, this opposite. I guess also if you've seen like what is it? Man in the High Castle. Kind of deals with the same kind of parallel universe, parallel dimensions kind of thing, where everything's the same, but just a few things are different, and it just, I don't know, man. It's weird. It weirds me out. What would you do if you found yourself in the shoes of the man from Taured? Like, how terrifying would that be? You just go on a flight, and then, like, they're checking your passport, and they're like, what the fuck is this? And you're like, oh, it's my passport from the United States. They're like, what's the United States?
You'd question everything. Like, I think after a while, you'd then question everything you think is right.
Everything.
And then you're screwed.
Everything. You're like, am I insane?
Yeah.
I forget what the word's called. There's this thing. It's this like theory and philosophy where you get to the point where you start to question whether everything is fake and you've made it all up in your own mind. It's kind of like a Truman Show kind of thing. Yeah. But even with Truman Show, it's like there's still a third party. It's like, no, there's no third party. Like, Josh, you're not real. I made you up, and I'm just like a head in a jar somewhere.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard of that thing too. I can't think of the name.
I would immediately jump to that of just like everything is fake, and I'm just now waking up out of the Matrix for the first time, and this is real life now.
Yeah.
Or I made up a whole world, and then I'm making up another parallel world within that world that says that world doesn't exist. I don't know, man.
I'd slap myself a lot. Like, what is happening?
Oh, God. Yeah. It's a weird story, but I do like it. I like that idea. I like that idea of multiple Earth theory. Just the thought that traveling between two worlds that are the same but just slightly different is theoretically possible. I mean, that's the whole thing with like Rick and Morty, and like one of the things about that show that make people love it so much is not only is it entertaining, but like a lot of the quantum physics and things that do happen in that show are theoretically possible. It's extreme fictionalized, insane versions of these theories, but if you boil it down, they are theoretically possible, and that's what makes the show so interesting. And you know,
I mean, I think people might not understand quantum theory. Well, like I'm acting like I do. I don't. But I think because of quantum theory, it enables everything you can even think of. And the simplest thing most people think of is just travel between one place and another, and then time, like how time is perceived and how it's made.
Right.
I actually just watched Event Horizon the
other
day, like this week. And, you know, just the way they describe it, you're like, oh, that's interesting the way that works.
Mm-hmm.
And then you see all the ramifications that come from it.
Yeah.
But, yeah, God, quantum theory is...
Dude, I love just different kind of takes on what teleportation and or time travel, what bending space and time could look like. I remember the first time I read Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five, and like the way time is described in that book is even so much different than like, oh, I go into the past or I go into the future. It's like it's even more like bizarre of like how you can mentally time travel at any point. And I don't know, it's super interesting, and it's presented in a way that's not the same as Back to the Future. I think Back to the Future is how most people would say time travel or teleportation works, because that's the thing. If you can time travel, you can also teleport, because if you can bend time, that also means you can bend space. It's a whole thing. Yeah, because they're the same. They're together. You can't do one without the other. And anyway, apparently there may be other dimensions, or at least one other dimension, and you know, who knows what's going on there. Maybe they don't have COVID-19.
I bet they don't.
Maybe they don't, and maybe they're all the better for it. And if they are, Earth 2, we wish you the best. Maybe we're Earth 2. Earth 1, we wish you the best. Good job. That about does it for us tonight on the Night Shift. For a Night Shift video, my name is James, and this guy is...
Josh.
We're just saying, thanks for stopping in.